Okay, extremely hot take that will probably get me in trouble with the internet, but the economy isn't bad. Your strategy is. And in this video, I'm gonna explain how I got ahead despite any economic conditions and how you can too. So let's get right into it. So one of the things I noticed recently that a lot of people have been attributing their lack of financial well-being to has been inflation versus like wages. It is generally over exaggerated, since over the last 5 years I'm pretty sure wages are only down like 0.5% on a real basis. But the thing is that you cannot be looking at your life through the average, right? Because you are an individual basis. So just because other people aren't doing well doesn't mean that you can't, and that doesn't necessarily mean the economy is as a whole is doing poorly. So answer this: what skills have you accumulated in the last 5 years that would warrant you getting paid more, and paid more relative to inflation? Have you been accumulating skills in old sectors that, may have actually been decreasing in the last few years? Or have you been garnering new skills which have obviously outgrown the old skills in their need and in general how much people are willing to pay for it, right? So like if you are a software dev, right, your demand might be a less than what it was 5 years ago during COVID, when you could get $200,000 jobs and work for home, right? But now maybe if you haven't learned any other skills, you might be falling behind because you haven't been able to leverage AI, for example. One thing I also wanted to mention with the inflation stuff that I forgot about is, do you know what the cumulative inflation rate was for the last 5 years? 25%-ish, right? 25%. That was the cumulative inflation rate. Do you want to know what the cumulative return of the S&P 500 was in the last 5 years? 115%. So that means basically, even post-inflation, you're still nearly doubling your money with that cumulative return. So I don't want to hear about how inflation has absolutely destroyed your life if you weren't invested in the stock market and actually growing your money. I just thought I'd throw that in there. So yeah, wages have basically kept up with inflation. Maybe yours just hasn't, or maybe your spending habits have changed, right? So a lot of people also say that like grocery store prices and certain goods have also increased in price, but this doesn't account for what most people are spending a lot of their money on, as in like their daily use items. So what I mean by this is, a lot of people have inflated themselves by thinking they deserve a better car, right? So they maybe go out and buy something they cannot afford. Or they are going out to eat more because, they deserve it, right? Why should I have to cook for myself? These are just examples. However, the cost of living has gone up. It's just what you prioritize and how you can mitigate those costs have also always been there, right? Like buying used cars or cooking for yourself to save money, just because you can't live like the top 10% of society every single day, that doesn't mean the economy is doing bad, right? That just means you're just not in the position that you want to be in. So the main thing I have to say with this is, even if it is true, let's just say that inflation was actually just stupid, out of control, and has never even recovered, and we're still, 9% below. What have you been doing to try to mitigate that? What skills have you been learning? It's all about personal responsibility, because who cares what the other people are doing? If they're being losers in their life, why should that mean that you have to be as well? Similarly, people have also complained a lot about housing prices, right? Essentially, the viewpoint is that we are all cooked now because home prices have gone up. However, a lot of the time, this doesn't consider for people's inflated standards of what housing looks like either. People nowadays are expecting homes that are, like 4 beds, 3 baths to be costing them $200,000 like they did 10 years ago. But this is just not the reality, and homes have gotten better, and the cost per square foot actually hasn't risen as drastically as people would like you to think. The thing is, houses have just gotten bigger, especially for new builds, and the standards and governmental regulations have also followed, so that housing and building such houses are just getting more and more expensive over time. And it's also funny that I see a lot of people that vote for these regulations that still complain about high housing costs, right? Like, of course, if you want more regulations based on environmental stuff or whatever else, whether it be just zoning in general, right? This is, of course, going to increase the cost of housing, because the demand is going to be high, but the supply isn't going to follow, artificially lowering the supply and raising the prices. Also, just because pricing for homes in general have gone up doesn't mean that your cost of living has to necessarily follow that exact curve, right? Maybe for a season you have to lower your standards, right? Just because everyone else's standards are rising, maybe you keep yours the same as it was 10 years ago, and you'll get prices similar to 10 years ago. So you do have control over your specific circumstance, and just because housing prices in general have gone up doesn't justify you necessarily raising your standards unless you're willing to pay that cost. Also, people like to blame the fact that they just weren't born at the right time for the opportunity to have been buying real estate in 2008. It's like, well, if only I wasn't 3 years old in 2008, I would have invested in the real estate market. However, with this, although it is true that 2008 was a great opportunity for home prices, people never look at their own opportunities that they have passed up, right? For example, where was your money when the bull rush of crypto was happening back in like 2020-ish? Were you investing? Were you taking that risk? Were you investing in that opportunity, right? Because you may have missed the perfect time to buy housing, right, and invest in real estate, but you didn't miss the perfect time to buy Bitcoin and be able to trade that, or learn about cryptocurrencies and what it and how to actually make money off of this asset. Some of you may even say, well, I was too young, I didn't have enough money then. Okay, so you saw that opportunity, maybe you let it pass you by. You're like, oh shit, okay, well, next opportunity, I'll take it up, because I just wasn't ready for this Bitcoin opportunity. So where were you in the bear market of 2022, right? Where all the stocks were getting pummeled into the ground, which actually led to undervaluation for a perfect new opportunity of cutting-edge technology known as AI. I'd say 2023 was really when AI started to kick off, and is, in the current day, the single best opportunity you could have invested in. So where were your dollars in 2022? Were they getting ready because this bear market, were you on the sidelines with cash, waiting for opportunity? Were you ready for AI? And when you saw that AI was booming, did you say, oh, it's a bubble, or did you actually invest? Oh, okay. So maybe you missed out on that opportunity, right? That's okay. That's okay. Well, recently there was a whole tariff debacle just earlier this year. So, where was your money at the time? Were you getting ready to invest in potentially looking at if and when stocks were undervalued? Were you ready for that taco that happened? Trump always chickened out and basically skyrocketing stocks higher than they were before the dip. Or were you waiting on the sidelines and just never taking the opportunity, weren't really interested in it, had other things going on in life? There has been plenty of opportunities for young people to get ahead and make some money that not necessarily was housing back in 2008. People just refuse to look at the opportunities they missed out recently and just blame the fact that they were too late and it's over for them. But it's not. You just have to look for the opportunities, and trying to do better off, even though in some areas the economy may have looked a little bit down. So these are the things I want you to ask yourself kind of before you just judge the economy based on your specific circumstance, and how you can actually change your circumstance to reflect the best of the economy. So I hope this was helpful, and I know it was pretty harsh, but I think it needs to be said and really is ignored by a lot of people. So appreciate y'all watching, and see you later.